there, everybody, it's Russ, and welcome to the very first episode of the Bike Whisperer, where I do a really deep dive on bike nerdy topics. And today we're going to talk about a really hot topic, and that is tires. A ton of you guys have been asking me what my favorite tire is, what tires do I recommend, and we're going to do all that today. But first, before we start off, I gotta pay the bills. So if you guys are digging this content, consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon. There's a link below, or by purchasing some of our goodies that we have on our web store. We just got a bunch of new stickers. You can do a personal consult. We can get super nerdy on which bike you should get. And of course, we've got our patches, super popular, still there. So tires, where to start? I think it's really difficult to talk about this whole supple tire thing without, of course, talking about Rene Herse, formerly Compass Tires, probably one of the brands that has really shaken up the bike market. I think, 100% without Jan and Grant Peterson kind of flying the flag of the benefits of wider supple tires, we would not be riding the tires we have today or the bikes that we are riding today. So thanks, Jan. So typically I get lots of emails, what tire should I get? They're kind of dipping their toes into the supple tire realm. And honestly, you really can't go wrong, I think, with anything from Rene Herse. So if you have a road bike and you can only fit a 28, I would definitely check out their Chinook Pass. And here's the thing, tire width, if you have two tires that have the same width, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to ride the same. A lot of it really depends on the sidewall, how supple it is, how much it gives. That gives you, that kind of suspension. Another tire that I've tried personally is the 700 by 30 Bon John Pass. I think these were included on the Spooky bike. That was a traditional cyclocross bike, not a ton of clearance, but they did manage to put these on there. And I have to say, it really kind of transformed how the bike felt. Typically, when you think aluminum, you think a little bit of a harsher ride, but with these tires, even though they're not, the 650B by 47s I love, they really smoothed out the ride, even on rocky stuff. Okay, within reason, but they did a great job. So if you don't have a lot of tire clearance, let's say you've got a traditional road bike or a cross bike, in terms of those smaller widths, I would definitely check out the Rene Herse tires. All right, so moving right along, another tire that I have enjoyed a lot recently is the Pathfinder Pro tubeless tires. So as the name suggests, these are tubeless. I've got the 650B by 47 millimeter versions currently on my Warbird, and I dig them. I mean, I love the tread pattern. It's got kind of like a high, smooth raised center, and it's got a little bit more pronounced knobs on the corners and the sides compared to something like the WTB Horizons. But these actually buy a little bit more purchase when things get a little bit muddy. They do have their limitations. The tread pattern is it's not the most aggressive, so when things got really muddy, it would kind of cake up and you'd lose that traction. But for kind of dry to damp conditions, this is probably my favorite all-rounder tire. So another tire that I'm also a huge fan of, pretty similar in some respects to the Specialized tires, kind of an all-rounder tire. This one is a little bit more aggressive, is the Soma Cazadero tires. I used the 700 by 50 millimeter version on my Cutthroat during Dirty Kansas, and it was awesome. Laura currently has the 700 by 45 on her Warbird. So we've tried this tire in multiple configurations, and it's definitely one of our favorites. I mean, I think it does have a really supple sidewall. It's got great traction, maybe a little bit buzzier than the Specialized tire, geared a little bit more to kind of more mixed terrain riding, but still a solid option, and it comes in a lot of width. So let's check here. Yeah, so they've got a 700 by 50 tubeless ready, 700 650B by 42 millimeter versions of that tire. So it's one that I definitely recommend. And one more thing, if you guys are Patreon supporters at that Team Supple level, then you guys know that we've got a special discount code for you guys who can get the tires at 20% off, which I think is an awesome bargain. Okay, so the next tire I'm going to recommend here are the Teravail Ramparts. These are a great alternative to the WTB Horizons, I think, as supple. Again, it's got that a little bit more road-oriented, slick tread, but you can take it off-road as long as things don't get like super sloppy. If you guys watched our Hallman saddle video, I actually rode these tires on that ride, and the last half of that ride is super chunky, lots of baby heads, and I managed to get down, not flat or shred a sidewall. So these are a great option. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to, run the Horizons, can't afford the Rene Herse. If your local bike shop has an account with QBP, which it probably does, and this is a tire that they can easily order. Okay, so sticking with Teravail just for a hot second, another tire that I really dig are these guys, and these are the Teravail Coronados. A little bit wider. These are 27.5 by, what are these, 3-inch tires. So it's not going to fit every bike. I actually have these tires on the Jones bike. I would suggest getting the tan sidewall version. I feel like those are more supple than this with the rubber casing. And I felt like it rolled a lot quicker, a lot lighter than the Maxxis Icons that came stock with the Jones. Still a fair amount of grip, but really playful. When you get this tire into the lower tire pressures, I'm talking like sub 10 psi, it's really bouncy, it's just goofy fun. You do have to be mindful of the sidewalls though. So I don't know, it's kind of that give and take, right, between a supple tire and the risk of flatting or tearing a sidewall. With great suppleness comes great risk. All right, so let's talk WTB. No doubt you guys have seen the Horizons and Horizon Byways, which in my opinion, for the most part, are essentially the same tire. I can appreciate the quasi tread on the Byways, the off-road version, but for me they're essentially the same tire. A tire that's pretty interesting that I've been riding recently are the Senderos. So these are definitely more off-road oriented, but I found, especially this time of year in Missoula, when the trails are starting to get dusty and I'm trying to find that extra traction, a tire like the Sendero on, say the Warbird or the Polyvalent, buys that extra grip around those corners. Definitely a little bit more sluggish and buzzy on pavement. But if you're doing a lot of mixed terrain, let's say 80% of it is mixed terrain, could be dusty, maybe a little bit muddy, then this is a tire I would go for. So another tire that I am always recommending and is the tire that we spec'd out for Laura's G-Road that we're going to unbox tomorrow is the Schwalbe G1 Allround. These are a little bit hard to find for some reason. Not every bike shop has them, and kind of availability in our experience has been tough. But they are worth it, especially if they fit on your bike. I think the ones that are going to be on Laura's bike are these 27.5 by 2.25. Those were the tires that were on the Breadwinner that I test rode last year that ended up being the most supple bike of the year. And I will say, I think a part of it is because of the tire. So what I love about this tire is the high volume, so you get that suspension, but also the tread's pretty interesting. It's made up of these little micro round nubbins that give you a fair amount of grip on loose terrain, but also roll pretty quick because they're all kind of on the same even plane. So if you can find this tire, I would definitely recommend giving it a try. And it comes in a ton of different widths. So these really chubby 27.5 by up to 2.8, so practically a plus size tire, down to 38C, some 29er versions. So lots of options out there. And lastly, we're going to talk about the Panaracer GravelKing. What's funny is I remember when they first released the GravelKing, I think the widest it came out initially was 28 millimeters. I was like, what kind of gravel is that? But times have changed. The tire has gotten much wider. You can get it here in 700 by 32 up to 700 by 50 now. That's pretty incredible. You can also get it in 650B versions up to 1.9 inch. So lots of options within the GravelKing SK range. So one thing I like about this tire is that it's fairly affordable, especially when compared to other tires. So it's not going to break the bank like some super plush Rene Herse tires, so they're more accessible. I do think, however, they are not the most supple tires. If you ever look at them, they've got two versions here, even like kind of a quasi tan sidewall version. That's just painted rubber. So I feel so it definitely leans more on, I guess, the more protective end of the spectrum. It doesn't quite have that super supple ride feel that I personally like, but at the same time, if you're kind of gun shy because of the possibility of tearing a sidewall, then this might be a good tire for you. I know our friend Allie rode these at Dirty Kansas, and leading up to it, she was getting flats all the time, and she was running them tubeless. So with all that to say, your mileage may vary. I know a lot of people who love these tires. I like them as kind of a budget option, but in terms of just pure ride quality and ride feel, not my favorite. And I think if you're willing to spend a little bit more, you truly can get a supple ride. All right, guys, I hope that answered your question about what tires I like, what tires I recommend. Sorry it took so long and then it's kind of in this boring format. But I wanted to pack in a lot of content and really tackle this question well. And let me know what you guys think of this, kind of more direct bike nerdy, bike whisperer format. If I get a good enough response, I think I might do more and tackle other things like how to read geometry charts in a deeper dive using our bike flavor wheel. What I really think about this low trail, high trail debate. But let me know if there's enough of a response, and then I'll do this again. It's pretty simple to film. And again, if you like this content, consider supporting the channel. All the links in the description below. And as always, keep the supple side down.